This has been an inspiring conversation. Hearing your story in as much detail as you've shared tonight, and the fact that you were willing to build into me, even though you didn't know it, by sharing your story. And then when I did reach out to you, it was Thanksgiving week, by the way, was the day that I poured it all down the drain and I was done. And to reach out to you that day and say, I've quit. And I've got a couple of weeks before I can get to a meeting. And you said, you immediately sent me your number, said, reach out anytime. You've been there a few times when I've celebrated some milestones of recovery. I'm sitting at just over 6 months.
Congratulations.
So grateful. And I'm grateful that you shared and you were as vulnerable and as open as you were, because that is a lot of the reason I'm sitting at this table, drawing a sober breath too. So you've given back in more ways than you know. So thank you.
Thanks, kid. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Like I said, that's a beautiful thing about it too, is it's teamwork. That's again, you get to be on a team, cheer one another on. It's a common goal of staying sober.
Yeah, and I didn't follow your story or anything firsthand. I just was always hearing my dad just casually mentioning your story, and he was always saying like, man, we got to get him on the podcast. But then he'd go, but then he would kind of hesitate. And I could tell, like, in my mind, I knew exactly what I wanted to tell him, but kind of like what you said, sometimes it's just best to let people discover their own destiny and let people be the architects of their own lives. And as much as I wanted to smack my dad in the face and be like, hey, cut the shit. Yeah. It was just, it was one of those things where I was watching him talk so highly about your journey, and it was something more. There was something more to it than just, hey, here's a cool story about a former player. It was more of like an internal battle I could see going on in my dad, and just watching him kind of make that first little baby step, that first step of the 12 steps, and then a few months later, he's like, well, we got to have Willie on the podcast now, because I don't have this overwhelming shame just like eating at my soul. And I was just like, I was over the moon about it. So I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I was down for it because I'm on my own recovery journey, and I'm a little bit further along, but I'm still, going through the motions, rolling through the punches at times. There's good days and there's bad days. But as far as I was concerned, I was like, whenever we get them on, I'm down to listen to people and their recovery stories, because there's always little nuggets that I can take away from them and that I can selfishly take. Yeah. Like, and say that just with the utmost joy, because like I was hearing you talk about lots of things, and there were things going on in my mind as you were telling your story that I'm like, yep, been there. Ooh, glad I was never there. And then other things that I just was like, yep. I remember where I was at when I kind of had that same feeling, or that same experience. And I just love listening to you talk about just when you're talking about emotional intelligence. It's so interesting, because saying I'm not an emotionally intelligent person, but then you talk about, but you're an emotional person, which that to me makes no dang sense at all. So that was a question I had earlier. I know we're kind of getting to the end of things, but I just couldn't walk away from this conversation without maybe finding some reconciliation to that. Have you confronted that before? Have you thought about the okay, I'm not an emotionally intelligent person. I was not the king of my mind. Right. But you were a slave to your mind, and now you are the king of your mind and your emotions and whatnot. When were you able to reconcile those things? Did you have that light bulb moment? They just went, oh, this is what I've been doing to myself, or what? How did that happen?
It was It's complicated. It's an excellent question, but it's complicated.
It is very complicated.
It's almost like,
That's why I couldn't figure it out. It was very complicated for me to hear.
So at treatment and things like that, we really dove into childhood things, childhood trauma, childhood thoughts. Sure. Thank you. And while I was doing that, I learned that that's where a lot of my negative self-talk has come from. That's where a lot of my judgments come from. I've learned that I wear a mask. I've wore a mask for a lot of people so they couldn't hurt my feelings. Well, the thing I had to learn is that none of that was going to get better or improve until I learned to like myself and actually love myself. So not in a weird, because everyone wants to be weird. But no, I've never had a self-love or appreciation for myself. I could love anyone else, but my cup was so empty for myself. It was ridiculous. So what I really had to work hard on is gaining a true understanding of who I am, what my principles are, of how I love people, how, my dad instilled in me to, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I mean, all those type of things, right? Just really understanding who I was. Now the other people can't hurt me as much because I am my own worst critic. But in that, there was things that I learned, say, like you said, you heard me talk and you got a nugget here and there. That's what happens in recovery, right? Is that if I'm at a recovery and I'm around people in recovery, they start talking. I hear how they have dealt with something. I hear how they have dealt with a scenario just like mine. I hear them talk about how their emotional intelligence, they may not use that word because we use that word different times now, right? Yep. Is that they understand instead of being, angry, that they were scared. They understood that their feelings were hurt. And that's something I learned to treatment. It was to understand your feelings. Like, it's okay. Like, no one can argue with you. You say, you know what? When you said that, it really hurt my feelings. It made me feel. No one can argue about how you feel. Someone can argue about what they did or what you're accusing them of doing, but the way you feel is how you feel.
Yep.
So
identifying where that feeling came from too. Because when I learned, and that was like the most profound, life-changing nugget I got from my therapist, and then going to treatment over and over again. I heard it over and over and over again, but it took a while for it to actually set in, was that when I'm angry, I need to identify where that anger comes from. Am I angry at this thing? Mm-hmm. Or is 5-year-old me angry? Because 5-year-old me was very angry and very upset all the time. And I did not have the emotional intelligence at 5 years old to understand why I was angry. So I'm 20, let's say I'm 25, right. I'm 28 now, but I'm 25 and I'm really, really, really angry.
Right.
Am I angry? Or is that me at 5 years old that's coming up out of the woodwork, that emotional unintelligent 5-year-old who was just hurt and broken. Mm-hmm. And I'm now a 25-year-old and I'm still hurt and broken.
Yeah.
Did you have kind of that moment where when you started to dig into your emotions, like was it one of, because for me, the thing that I realized is I was not good with my emotions, because growing up I was a very, very emotional child and I punished myself for it. Mm-hmm. And now I'm a very, very emotional adult and I reward myself for it because I recognize now, same person,
right?
Just different outlook,
right?
Different outlook. And when I'm angry, I'm passionately angry. Yeah. When I'm happy, I'm passionately happy. Did you make that like reconciliation with your emotions?
I did. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was something that, and I'm glad we're going a little deeper into this, because people need to understand this stuff takes work. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen overnight. And if you want this stuff to stick, if you want your moods to change, if you want your loved ones, your relationships to change, this is the kind of work it takes. And it's not easy. It is hard. It is painful and things like that. It can be. So for me, I also had to go back to that little kid. And at times, through working with the therapist, things like that, they said, at times when you have something really frustrating, sometimes if it's really getting to you, imagine yourself as your 5-year-old self, and your 5-year-old self comes up to you frustrated about the scenario you're facing. What would you say to your 5-year-old self?
Yep.
And it's like, man, once they gave me that little nugget, man, that thing is worth more than $1 billion because yes, I have my days and my times, and trust me, I am not perfect. There's people who I work with can attest to this. When I'm hungry, when I'm frustrated, I have my moments, right?
Bitch.
I have my moments. Yeah, me too.
I can be a little
right?
bitch.
Right? 100%. But it's like, but that's the kind of work though, at the moments where you might say, okay, the old you would do something really stupid. That is the peacefulest, easiest thing to deal with that situation is to think about that moment with the kid. And when it comes up to you, you're so-and-so, you know, and you're just kind of like, yeah, but you know how much work we put into this?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be proud. You worked your butt off and you have made a lot of changes. Like you talk, you know what I'm saying? So it's a
changing
healing.
That inner voice.
Yes, it's changing the inner voice.
And it doesn't come right away. It comes with practice. It comes with repetition over and over and over again. My therapist tells me this every therapy session. I got a new therapist. Thank God for him. He's been awesome. And he just tells me, like anything in life, you've got to do it over and over again. And I think what scares people from recovery and what scares people from helping themselves, it doesn't even have to be drinking. It doesn't even have to be drugs. It doesn't have to be some catastrophic thing. Just some character flaw that they have is that when they fail once, they take that as that it's permanent.
End game, yeah.
It's end game failure. And it's like, it's just one of many failures. And there's this guy who was my mentor in high school. His name was also Scott Dugan. Shout out Scott Dugan. He would always tell his kids, and at the time I did not understand how profound it was, but he would just always tell us as high school boys, like the goal is to not fail. The goal is to just fail less often and to be okay with failure.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was just like, yeah, that's fun. That's a nice little bumper sticker slogan. I love it. And when I was going through recovery, like that stuck with me because it was like, because now I hold this mindset of like, am I going to fail? Probably.
No.
But I'd rather fail in other ways though. You know, I'm okay with failure so long as it's something that I know how to handle. And if it's something I don't know how to handle, that's also fine too, because honestly, I love situations that are actually completely, totally 100% outside of my control. Cause it's like, well, that's not my fault. I can't do anything about that. But the things that I can, I hate to use the word control, but it's like the things that I have a grasp on, like I'm also okay with failing in those things because I'm human and I'm bound for failure.
Right.
So when it came to recovery, it was like, I'm going to probably fail again and that's okay. And I still kind of hold that mindset and I might change it. I'm thinking I might change it, but, it's helped me get over 3 years past where I was before. Awesome. And just listening to your story, oh my gosh, I love talking to people about this stuff because it's not just about the drugs. It's not just about the alcohol. It's about the universal human experience of battling life and fighting our demons. We all got our own demons, and sitting here today with a bunch of, I think I'm a grown man, but sometimes my wife can attest I act like a child.
Mine too.
Yeah, but she likes it. That's why she married me. She's like, you're such a kid. But we're all sitting here, bunch of grown ass men, sitting here talking about things that
getting emotional.
Maybe, one thing that I can say, about my father that I greatly appreciate is he never shamed me for anything, that he never shamed me for who I was. And he always made sure that I knew that he loved me and that I was loved for who I was. And we are all sitting here as men with broken cycles of some sort. There's things that your father did. There's things that your father did. There's things that my father did that we all are in strive of changing. And I can't imagine. I can't think of anything better than that in life right now, because it's like things are life is way too hard to have bad experiences with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having a good dad is key. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but I just sitting here, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, because it's like, God, this is what I want from our world. It sounds so cheesy and goofy, but it's reality.
And that's the cool thing too. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that's awesome about recovery too, right? Is we get to mend those different relationships. And we also learned, like I say, because I got a chance to share on a different show how great my relationship is with my dad today. But it's like we learn those things, right? We learn that the things we may have taken personally, that's not personal. It's just that's what their dad taught them. They taught, so they don't know that just do whatever worked for them. And maybe even they didn't like it. They do it too, because they just think that's how you do it. Recovery and things like that, it challenges your thinking, it challenges your ways. So it changes, how you might do something. And then you're able to kind of communicate about it, right? Because you're not so emotionally worked up. You can actually have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And it creates an amazing bond. I mean, it's done that with my dad. It's done that with my daughter. And it's things that we can finally accept. Like, some people, but, oh man, that's a cheesy, corny conversation to have. Well, you know how freeing it is. You know how freeing it is. It's like we worry about being manly. It's like, what's more manly than being able to have a good conscience when you go to bed at night, being able to be employed, actually pay your bills, actually have a relationship with your family? If that sounds less manly to you, then hey, well then whatever. If that's working for you to be at the bar and drinking your sorrows away every night and not spending time with your family, not facing any responsibilities, not facing any of the demons in your own life, that's fine. If that's more manly, then I would take this less manly version of life any day over the other version of life that I tried to live, that I thought everybody else, viewed as manly, and probably still do, because this me can recognize not only the emotions, but I can also understand and know, you know what? It's that time. I need me a good cry. I'm going to go and I'm going to throw on freaking Endgame, or whatever with the Avengers or something, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to throw that on. I'm going to throw, because I'm fine with that. I'm going to throw on the Lion King, because sometimes, like I said, that's where I'm at with myself. Is I can do that in public and watch it and cry. I really don't care, because I don't live my life anymore for you, for whoever's watching me. I live my life for God and for my family, and to try and be the best person I can be every day that I'm blessed to see. And like you said, as long as we get to take another breath, we may fail in a moment, but that just gives you the opportunity to succeed, to try and succeed again and again. The moment we stop, the only moment we ever truly fail is when we just quit, period. And I've done that, and I tried to be done, but for whatever reason, God saw it, unfit to take me, and still has me here. And it's for moments like this to be able to talk, to be able to go through, to deep dive, have these conversations, have you feeling where you feeling like you went on your soapbox and went deep. But I loved it. I mean, that added a whole nother element of depth to what we've been discussing pretty much the show. It lets people know that you don't have to be a freaking starting player down in Lincoln to live life. I mean, we all live life. And it's like they get to actually find out that recovery in its sense, or just in general, the willingness to understand that you don't know everything and to be willing to get a little help. Look at the impact it has. You and Dad doing a freaking podcast together. I mean, it's just, this is the stuff where people want to say, well, where's God? I mean, boom, God made this connection. Yep. Doing more gathering his name. So there we go.
And I won't lie. I was like, there were times where I resented my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I resented him, and it was for the wrong reasons. Because just like you said, you learned that there were ways that your dad loved you that you didn't understand at the time, and there were patterns of behavior that your dad had at the time that you were trying to change him.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to change him,
right?
And I remember many conversations where early in my recovery, I was recognizing all of the things that I saw at the time were harmful to me growing up.
Yeah.
and those thoughts have completely changed now, because I now recognize that, yeah, well, my dad did his damn best, and he succeeded in more ways than he ever failed. And so
thank you.
It's one of those things that, like, there's no more resentment in my heart. I don't hold any resentments. I hold them all as blessings, because I'm the man that I am today for every reason and every situation that's ever happened to me, and I want to trade it for a damn thing. So Thank you, Dad.
Thank you, son. One of the gifts, if I would have sat here 2-3 years ago, or more accurately in the sleeper of my truck, with an open bottle of Jim Beam, because I didn't have a glass. I just drank straight out of the bottle while we were recording. And if you would have told me that less than 3 years later we'd be sitting in a table in a pretty cool studio, and that I'd be 6 months sober and seeing a success level for our podcast that I never would have managed, I'd have told you were crazy. But now looking back, I can see that this podcast was exactly the vehicle God used to get me sober. Because I knew I was drinking a lot, but I didn't understand how deeply it had taken root in my life until I tried to do a podcast without drinking, and it scared me shitless to be on camera. And the first time
going through the motions.
And then the first time I ever cracked the mic after getting sober and doing the post Iowa show that we did, it was one of the most joyous experiences of my life. Because I'm like,
because Iowa sucks.
I'm not afraid. Iowa sucks for one, and I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of being me. Yeah. I'm not afraid of admitting that I am weak. Because, the Apostle Paul wrote it, that there was a thorn in the flesh given him after he took on his ministry, and he asked God 3 times to remove it. And God said, no, my grace is sufficient for you, because it is in your weakness that my power is made perfect. And that's the way I look at my recovery, as I'm just living with the thorn now. Yeah. And it's all good. The thorn is sobriety, and I'm cool with that, because God's grace will keep me there.
Yeah.
So,
yes, it will.
So anyway, Willie, my goodness. I didn't think we'd get that deep. I didn't think God would take us that route. But all 3 of us sat here before we cracked the mics, before we started this, and we said, this is in God's hands tonight. We don't really have an outline. We have a flow of where we wanted the show to go, and we didn't even get to the last part, but that's okay, because we got to the part that we needed to get to, which was gut level honest about everything, gut level honest about our relationship. That I didn't see coming. But thank you for that. You gave me a great gift tonight, one that I didn't expect. So before we go, we're going to institute a brand new tradition on Generation Red. Anybody that sits at the table with us will get to sign the sign, if you will. So we've got a couple of Sharpies here, and anybody who's a player or been a player for Nebraska gets the opportunity to sign on the end or inside that white circle. So Willie, you get the inaugural signature. Choose your color.
Oh boy.
CU colors. I'm not sure why we're doing that, but we're doing it. But
okay.
Pick your poison, my friend, and sign wherever you want there on that inside of the end. I know it's a little dusty.
Scott, you were saying to use the gold. Players use gold, and
players should use gold.
Okay.
I guess.
All right. So
I think the gold looks cool for players. I mean, why the heck not? You know?
All right. All right. You guys want me to sign this thing? All right. Oh, there you go. I gotta hit the line a little bit there.
You're all right. Sign it anywhere. It's good. It's
all
good.
Right.
And now that you've done that, Willie, let everybody know where they can follow you, if on social media, as well as any information that you have out there, or where they can get more information about Athletes Revive.
Well, right now I have to say Athletes Revive is still working on all the social media things for it, but you should be able to look up under athletesrevive.com or athletesrevive.org, and it should take you to there as well. I believe social media, I don't know, Willie Miller I think I'm Willie Miller J-Screw on Instagram and just Willie Miller on
Facebook.
Yeah, it's like on sorry, he threw this one at me. So yeah, Willie Miller. At Miller Willie 15 for Twitter if you want to follow. Start putting some photos and things like that out there. And on LinkedIn, just under Willie Miller. Yeah, BSN RN. So yeah, feel free to follow any social media things. Like I said, I want to start putting a few more things out there and stuff. So thank you so much for having me on tonight. This has been pretty awesome. It's good to get a chance to do that and get to know you tonight, Scott, too. And just hearing the change that has taken place in you guys' relationship, just the healing, even though it wasn't to say a certain head that, you know what I mean? But just the healing, just the interpersonal part of that. That's really deep. And I'm grateful that you guys are willing to share that.
Yep. I'm grateful that you came. So really appreciate your sitting down with us, Scott. Where can folks find you?
Yeah, folks, you can find me on Twitter at ScottGenRedPod. That's Scott with 2 T's. The second T is in fact silent and will remain that way. You can follow me there. Don't do much there at the moment. The off season is just, I'd have to try to talk about things, and I don't like to do that. So follow me there. When we start to get more towards fall camp, I'll probably pick things up, but preemptively follow me on Twitter at ScottGenRedPod.
And you can follow the show at GenRedPod on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as Generation Red on your favorite podcast app. The audio for this show should be released sometime Tuesday morning. Might be splitting this one in two. Have a couple of them to put out because I don't think we're planning to do any streams or any shows between now and sometime in July. But we will be live at the Hale Varsity Club sometime this summer on a Monday night. So that's going to be really cool. Anyway, for everybody watching, thank you so much. For everybody listening, we really appreciate you downloading the show. He's Scott. I'm Ken. We're here with Willie Miller, and all three of us have experienced something incredible tonight. And this has been Generation Red, and we're here to remind you every week that there is no place like Nebraska.
And Iowa's corn just sucks. I couldn't think of anything fun to say.
Sucks bad alcohol.
It sucks. It sucks. Midi 2020. I don't know. It sucks.
Midi 2020.
Yeah, but I'll leave it with a go big red and go Jays and go J Screw.
Okay. Well, we'll let you get by with that.
Thanks. All right. There you go. Fair.
See y'all later.